Anthony Waller, great to meet you.
Hi, good to meet you too, Shane.
I'll get to Mute Witness at some point, but I'll start with the Piper. Well, actually, first, have you ever been to Australia? I mean, have you ever worked down here or visited anything like that?
I've actually got a cousin who lives there, and I visited her,
Yeah,
and but that was part of a trip to see Everett de Roche, or de Roche, you might pronounce his name, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, because he was we were working together on a script for 9 Miles Down, which is
yeah.
originally going to be set in Australia. So I remember flying from Munich to Frankfurt via Bangkok to Sydney, then across, all in one trip, then across to a smaller airport, and then to Broken Hill, and then from Broken Hill on a helicopter. And it was still one journey. And I was sort of like in a daze, and remember looking down and thinking, there are kangaroos hopping about. And this was like my first experience of Australia, which felt like one trip from larger to smaller and smaller aircraft until I was on this um, helicopter, and he was saying, this is where we're going to set the movie and everything." So it ended up being shot in Tunisia because of the way the financing was done, and
Yeah.
so the whole thing was set in Sahara. So instead of Aborigine folklore, we had Arabic, Tuareg, and that kind of background. So, but yeah, that was my experience with Australia.
Yeah, well, that would have been a long trip. And considering we're so far ahead of the rest of the world, it would have been tough to figure out what time it was or what day it was.
Yeah, well, I had that when doing promotion for Mute Witness. I was being flown around the world. I actually went 1.5 times around the world in 8 days, including 2 days in Tokyo. And there, because I was on an international flight almost every day,
Yeah.
going from all these festivals, and I didn't know what time my body clock should be, how much it'd been catching up, and where it was completely disorientating.
Wow. Yeah. So Mute Witness obviously took you around the world. That's pretty amazing. Again, I'll get to that eventually because I really still love it to this day. Always recommend it. The Piper. Now, I've got to say that this came out of the blue. I wasn't even aware you'd made this movie. It's folklore again. You seem to have that as a theme in a lot of your movies. How did you come about deciding to make this film? I mean, it's different. I don't think I've seen a movie about the Pied Piper.
Right. Well, I always thought, the fairy tale, I mean, it was always a jolly character prancing about in colorful clothes and that kind of thing. And I thought it would be good to have a darker vision of it, but that wasn't my original impetus. It was again Australia. It was Duncan Kennedy's script. I was sent a script
Yeah,
from an Australian production company, and that was an out and out shock 'em horror with a Piper character who sort of with a high body count, and
yeah,
the Australians were looking for something a bit more for a teen audience, which wasn't R like PG-13, so there's something not quite so far over it towards the horror area. So I did some rewrites on it. We couldn't agree on the creative side with the script, and then I ended up waiting until that their option that they had on Duncan's script expired. Then I bought that myself, did continue the rewrite, and then found my own financing, and then shot it. Not in Hamelin. We shot just 2 days in Hamelin. The rest was shot in Latvia, because Latvia Riga looked like the Hamelin in my mind, that more than the Hamelin itself,
yeah,
because some of it, because through the movie, sometimes not only were we meeting characters and spirits from
yeah,
the past, we're also in locations of the past that then are then gone by the end of the film. So it's like a hybrid of spirits and people from the past and the present, and so they're happening at the same time.
mm,
So does that was so the idea of the idea of the story of the Piper punishing somebody who's gotten away with something by taking away their children. It was just it was just one person, the mayor, who didn't pay him for ridding the town of rats, so he takes all the children away, which is rather extreme, extreme punishment. But that idea that you
Yeah.
punish somebody by taking away their kids rather than just attacking or killing them or punishing them directly is quite a dark theme, which is interesting to explore because you get the mother child, the
Mm.
parent-child relationship, of course, being strained. So we see our lead characters who starting bonded and with a good relationship,
Yeah.
start to mistrust each other, start to lie, and the secret is that they have to, reunite, come back together, and
Mm.
in order to defeat the Piper's curse.
Yeah. I mean, I vaguely remember kids being sort of taken away or stolen in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Am I correct? That happened in that movie as well. Something similar.
Yeah, yeah, and that was in the castle Neuschwanstein in the south of Bavaria, which
Yeah.
well, yeah, yeah. So they used to lock the children up, lure them with ice cream from a ice cream
Yeah.
van. I think you
Well,
remember.
that crossed my mind when I was watching this. I mean, but you also got bugs and rats. I mean, you're tapping into a lot of things that will creep people out. Even though I wouldn't call this a horror movie, it's more of a fantasy film, but it's still kind of you've got that creepy factor. The levels are high.
It's a mixed hybrid movie, yeah,
Yeah,
because it's adventure, superstition, um,
true.
it's a romantic, um, supernatural. Uh, it's it's got all
It's
those
got
different elements.
everything,
Yeah, yeah. Because I
including
like this
it's
genre. It's the marketing people don't like it. They like to put things in boxes and say, to be able to categorize it. Oh, it's this, it's that,
yeah.
because well, I think they're too lazy to think up of how to market something that's a little bit out of the norm, out of the ordinary. So,
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you've had a lot of experience over the years with marketing, in particular American Werewolf, but I'll ask about that a little bit later. The design of the Piper, it was interesting. I know there's CGI work there, but the costumes looked really well put together, and I like the design. It was something different.
yes, it's real leather, and we had to weather the leather so it wouldn't look brand new.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it was we had tried designs with hats before, but I thought the hood where the face could sometimes remain completely dark would
yeah,
be more scary. But I wanted the leather to have a shine so that it's not completely black on black, because we want to shoot with him in dark
mm.
locations. But you need to just see an outline, so the leather had a bit of shine on it, and of
I
course it was
noticed
wet.
it was the same costume designer as the movie Swallow. Is it Lean DeBraga or DeBraja? She's a very good designer. I love
Yeah,
the film
yeah,
Swallow as
yes,
well.
yes, 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 it was. Yeah, she's an award-winning designer,
Yeah,
Latvian. Yeah. Mm.
cool. Why did you choose this movie as to be your next film? Was it? I know you said you were working on it for a while, but was it something you really wanted to do over the years? A story that it felt like it needed to be done?
I did work on it for a while, and then we met an impasse, and then I started working on a 16-part TV series, which
Oh,
was set about true events between 1993 and 2003. The invasion of Iraq, search for weapons of mass destruction, 9/11. Took 3 or 4 years out of my life. So if people only look at my movie CV, they might think, oh, there's a big gap there, but I was busy.
you were
Yeah,
producing, right?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I directed all episodes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so
See, mm,
then I revisited Piper because we'd reached an impasse. I put it aside, and then my co-producer for the series called Oil for Blood, also known as Trader,
mm,
he said, "Well, what do you want to do next?" And I should have blown the dust off and then said, well, what about this? Because by then the option that the Australian company had with Duncan had
Yeah,
expired. They hadn't renewed
yeah.
it. So that's when I revived it. And then from then, that moment onwards, it was quite quick to put together.
Okay. Was it ever going to go theatrical, or have you released it theatrical elsewhere in the world? Because in Australia, it'll be on home entertainment, digital, and at
That
least it's on physical
um,
media as well, DVD.
Yeah, that might have been easier if a studio had picked it up, but we're going to we're selling it territory by territory, and so the individual distributor decides whether it's going to go
Okay.
theatrical or video on demand or whichever the method they want to distribute it. Because when they've
Okay.
bought the rights for it for their territory, it's up to them how
Yeah.
they want to exploit it. But we had a world premiere in Leicester Square in the IMAX theater with
Oh,
a full audience, and that's the best I've ever seen it on that huge screen.
yeah.
It's beautiful, an IMAX screen. Yeah. So it certainly comes across well on a big screen. So
Mm,
I'm hoping that some territories will release it in the cinema. But
yeah.
I think Germany, it's Apple TV, and in the US, it'll open in November in with Apple TV as well, and Amazon, and a lot of the major streamers. So
Yeah.
people will have access to it. Yeah.
I'm just old school. I like to see everything at the cinema. That's just my
Yeah,
thing. So,
you haven't heard yeah, absolutely. You haven't heard whether Australia's going to bring it in the cinema, or I mean, even a limited
uh,
would be nice.
yeah, no, I hope I'm not breaking any news to you, but as far as I'm aware, it's home entertainment, so on demand digital platforms and physical media, so DVD. I'm not sure about Blu-ray. Um, Unless it changes, I hope it changes. I'll be front and center. I'll be happy to introduce it and talk about it before people watch it, if that was the case. But yeah, I think it's just digital platforms. The cast, though, I mean, Elizabeth Hurley's your lead. She doesn't do a lot of acting these days. How did you coax her into being in your film, or did you know her previously?
Well, I guess because the kind of roles she used to play were while she was still much younger, and so now she's taking a transition to, parent roles, and
Yeah.
so I guess she used to be in that box, that sexy temptress box, and in Bedazzled or whatever. So I think the transition to different kinds of roles,
Hmm.
she realized she had to do more of those now. So no, it was a suggestion of our casting director Jeremy Zimmerman, and he's put her in a lot of movies before,
Right.
and so he sent her the script, and she loved it. She just said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it as long as there are no rats." I said, "You
Except
did read
digital
it.
rats.
I knew you did read the script." She says, "No, I mean no rats on set," because
Yeah.
she has a rat phobia. So we couldn't have any live rats at all in any scenes that she's in. And actually, it wasn't practical to have live rats anyway. It's hard to direct them. They don't
Hmm.
do as they're told. I did have live rats in American Werewolf, and they just had to sit on a pipe. But
Yeah.
the even the scene where she picks up a a rat out of the drinking tap, their
Yeah.
drinking water, it has to drip, and it's not giving away too much when the rat looks dead, but of course it isn't. It suddenly springs into life.
Hmm.
They're lifting it up and carrying it across to the pedal bin. Um, that would have cost tens of thousands of special effects
Right.
if she was doing it with nothing. We had to put the rat in.
Yeah.
Um, that would have been a lot of animation, expensive animation, and she did brave it and pick up the puppet, because even she was even scared at first of this of the puppet of the rat, because it was made quite it was quite effective. And rats always go always skinny and scrawly when, like a cat, when it's wet, it
Oh,
kills
right.
bones and everything. So but she she did brave. And I said, well, it helps the acting because your expression when you're looking at it,
That's true. Yeah.
makes it natural and so forth, therefore more easy.
I've heard you can train rats, so that probably is time consuming, or you'd have to get like a wrangler in. But I have heard
Yeah, but to
you
train
can
them to
train.
eat somebody or chase somebody or a whole
Yeah.
swarm of hundreds of them, I think, yeah. And
Well,
also,
I
I mean, my
think,
favorite shot is when the rats assemble and create the Piper out of the rats, because if you're thinking you've got the spirit of the Piper from the past, so is he only working on a psychological
yeah,
level, or how does he physically manifest himself? What he
yeah,
does is
yeah.
manipulate the minds of the rats to form themselves into a form, and then he as a spirit can actually physically have an effect
Hmm.
um, in the real world.
Uh,
So
it is the shot of the movie, and I can see why you like it so much. And it's given away in the trailer, which was, I mean, I know that's the hook, but yeah, it's in the trailer. But it's
mm,
an impressive moment, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a spoiler in terms of
No.
oh, I didn't know there was going to be a Piper in it. So it is
Yeah.
it's an effective shot. Yeah, and of course
Yeah. No, it's really
it's
good.
assembles at another part of the movie as well.
Yeah. Well, if it's successful, you'll have a sequel, and then the Piper will become like Pinhead or Freddy or Jason, maybe. You never know, right?
This is the thing. If it does become a franchise, then you could imagine people getting Piper costumes to go to Halloween parties.
That's it.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So the release is almost in November, so it's almost like gearing up for Halloween.
Mm.
But I don't think we'll be able to mass produce any Piper costumes in by then. Maybe
Uh,
next Halloween.
well, I hope it is successful for you. You never know. Movies can take time, as you're probably quite aware. You can release something and then they build over time. I mean, the ending, I'm not going to spoil it, but I was happy with how it ended and how it sort of wrapped up, so to speak. Did you have alternate sort of ideas on how to finish the film, or how it ended is how you wanted it?
Yeah, it's hard to speak about it without it giving away a spoiler, but
Sure.
but it is the kind of ending where if you go back and see other scenes, you look at them differently, think, oh, that's why, because he
That's it.
or they or what some people weren't there or some are, yeah.
Mm.
So was it in her mind? Did she actually leave her bedroom? Was there a secret tunnel, or was it like Alice in Wonderland? And yeah, which is yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's I don't want to give it away too much, but there's also a few nice little moments in the end credits right up until the end as well. So there's
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
I don't want
always
to
suggest
through
for
the
people to
movie.
watch the credits.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about the rest of the cast? I mean, Tara Fitzgerald, she was in a great Australian movie, Sirens, and I hadn't seen Mia Jenkins before, but she was quite impressive. Did the casting director also suggest them to you?
Yes, yes, because Mia, I mean, she's quite young and she'd been on Disney TV programs before,
Musical, yeah, a lot of music stuff.
and yeah, music stuff, and um, but I don't know if you've seen her and watched her in any other things, but she's from the north of England, so she's got a Northern England accent, and she just switches to an American accent like that. I mean, it's
Yeah,
so good at that. I mean, most people are surprised that who have seen the film, surprised that she's has got a very northern accent, English accent. So and the amazing thing with her was that she never fluffed a line in the entire shoot. Every
really.
take she did would just be a variation of something before. We never had to go again because of a mistake. Yeah.
That's rare.
The only physical blooper that did go wrong was when this hilarious sequence, well, it's a hilarious shot in the bloopers of her having a conversation with Luca. He's riding the horse, and they're walking along parallel, and the horse isn't just doing what it's supposed to do, and it's quite funny. So it's great watching that scene cut together, and then watching that one take where everything goes wrong. But
Yeah.
that blame the horse, not her for that.
No, I'm not blaming her for anything. I knew she was British, so I was aware she was putting on a great accent. But yeah, I hadn't seen her before until I looked her up. So really impressive young star. I think she'll go a long way. And of course, Tara. It goes without saying, it was great to see her pop up always.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because she'd worked with the cameraman before,
Right.
because she was one of the last people to cast for the role, and because we only ever see her in her caravan, we were able to shoot all the caravan scenes together. So her
Yeah.
shoot, even though she's omnipresent throughout the film, her shoot was only 2 shooting days. So it was quite convenient to fly somebody over, somebody who's a recognizable name.
Mm.
You can offer you're in and out in 2 days, and so it's relatively little trouble for them and for us. But it wasn't till late on, because we were shooting during COVID, and people were
Right.
not keen on traveling. In actual fact, our Piper character, who you can use a double for some of the shots when he's in the distance, or when the face is.
I thought there might have been a double.
But our close up, yeah, some of the body language, of course, is important that it's him. But
Yeah.
we were forced to use a double because he was going to come twice, and but he only came once. The first time he came down with COVID, we had to push.
Oh.
We change the schedule and keep the stuff where his face is visible, to a later part in the schedule. But once he had covered and passed 2 tests and the like. So, but the cameraman knew Tara Fitzgerald from a previous shoot, so he contacted her, and Roger did, and she obliged last
Oh,
minute.
I'm
And
glad.
yeah, and there were about 4 or 5 people who were wearing the costume. Another bloke got sick when he was in the costume, and I was like,
Oh,
something with the costume is a curse of the costume. And then
yeah.
I wore the costume in one scene. I actually played the Piper in the scene in the confession booth. That
Oh,
was
that's
me,
you.
and that was my voice as well.
Oh, well, I
Yeah, because
know.
it starts off with, "Oh, my child, do you come from confession? No, I know of this, and you're very gentle and everything." And then by the end, it's, "Oh, my tooth." So, and you slowly ramp it up between one stage and the other. And of course, when he's not in the booth, you think, he's a ghost, so how did you go? But later on, you find that underneath the booth, there's a trap door, because I always wanted to keep the idea that to not give away, oh, is this real, or is it the locals
Mm,
perpetuating a myth? Is
mm,
it and so I always wanted it open to 2 interpretations.
mm.
So later, when you see there's a trapdoor underneath, it could have been somebody sort of freaking her out and getting her to confess in a different a different way, more extreme
Yeah.
way. Or it could have been the ghost spirit. I do the same thing with the wardrobe and the secret passage as well, as you probably would have noticed, because always wanted to keep the audience guessing, having something for them to guess about,
Yeah.
what level in mind, what levels are
No,
are
I think that
perpetuated.
was successful. It's low key, but it keeps your interest levels high, and you're sort of darting around, looking around the screen as well, seeing what's happening behind certain characters. So no, it worked. I think it's a successful film, Anthony, and I hope a lot of eyes get on it and people talk about it. And you have a cameo. It's funny you said you played the Piper in one scene. Like, you seem to cameo in a few of your movies. Is that just
I
something you
do.
like doing?
I do. Yeah, I played Elizabeth husband, Liz Hurley's husband, in this movie, which is a strange thing to be able to brag about. My partner said, "What? You're married to Liz Hurley?" Well, only in the movie, and they say, "Yeah, well, that's even better, isn't it?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a. I also played the voice of the librarian because the librarian was had a very strange Latvian accent, so I dubbed him as well.
Yeah.
And then yes, in my TV series, I play a real life character called Rolf Ekius, who was a United Nations weapons inspector.
Okay.
And I wore a big white wig and glasses, and not even my crew and cast recognized me when I came on set.
Can
Yeah,
they could they
because I
tell
played
when you
another role in
spoke?
that as an agent, and I had a goatee and with short hair. So I played two roles in the same TV series, but looked completely different.
Did you change your voice, or did they just not recognize you from sight?
I changed my voice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Billy, how did you cast Billy in Mute Witness? Marina, I haven't seen a lot of, but she was so good. Do you keep in contact with her and the people from Mute Witness, or don't see
Uh,
them around?
yeah, I mean my co-composer on Piper was my composer for Mute Witness. The production designer was Matthias Kammermeier, and my editor, who unfortunately passed away last
Oh,
December with cancer, because I'd done 3 projects with Peter Adam. And so that was a reunion
okay,
of team, and Alexander Buchmann, my co-producing partner, was also on all 3 movies. So yeah, Mute Witness did have, unfortunately, the cameraman passed away also since
oh.
Mute Witness, but I mean, we're talking about over 30 years ago. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I know you've told stories about it probably your entire career, but I have been recommending it for that entire 30 years since I saw it in Sydney.
yeah.
Uh, I
We're
mean,
actually doing a screening next week on Wednesday evening
yeah,
in Los Angeles. I'm flying to Los Angeles on Monday for a number of reasons, but at the American Cinematheque, we're having a screening, and it'll be the first time I see on a big screen the Mute Witness remastered version, because I'm re-releasing that this year as well, also in Australia. So
good.
so we've got my first and my latest movie. Don't want to say last movie, my latest first and
Let's
latest movie.
don't say that.
um, uh, Releasing it this year,
Oh,
worldwide. Yeah,
wow, that's
so
amazing.
it's
Well,
almost like bookending at the moment. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I hope I can organise or there's some sort of 4K screening of it here when it gets released. If there's
yeah.
any luck there in Sydney, I'd be
Yeah,
front and
it's going to
center.
be 4K DCP. And
Yeah.
Arrow are releasing it.
Okay.
Shudder and Arrow are taking together. They're sharing the English-speaking territories. So
Cool.
they're
All
doing
right.
that.
Well, I'll look into that. And speaking of last movies, and I know you've told the story about meeting him and asking him, and he said yes, surprisingly. But Alec Guinness, is there anything you haven't spoken about your experiences with Alec? Did he ever give you any advice? What was he like to work with? I mean, that's pretty amazing having him in. It's already a good movie, but to have him in that cameo and the build up to it was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the story, because it's uh, somebody's even suggesting that I do a short movie about how I got him to play the role, because I lived in Munich at the time. I traveled up to Hamburg knowing he was there to get a prize, and so
Yeah.
I spoke to him when could get a word in edgeways, because he was there receiving the Shakespeare Prize, 1984. Um, and I asked him if he would play a role in a movie that I was shooting at the moment, a small cameo. And he said, well, he's booked up for the next 1.5 years. And I said, well, what about tomorrow morning? Because his plane wasn't leaving until 1 o'clock. Uh, and this was 8 in the evening, and it was the British Council in Hamburg, where I wasn't even living in Hamburg at the time. And I said, well, look, it's easy. You get in your the lift from the hotel, go to the underground garage, you say your lines 10 minutes and go back up. I mean, I hadn't organized any of this. I hadn't even written his lines at the time. But and then it sounded so easy, and so okay, he'd agree to it. And then I thought, right, I've got Guinness, I've got to get all the rest,
Yeah.
including he wanted his lines before going to bed. I had to get a crew location. The hotel where he was staying
Mm.
immediately said, well, no, the management's gone home. We can't do it here. So I had to move the location to a different underground garage, go back to him and say, well, I have to pick you up with a taxi. Anyway, it's a long story, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really fun and exciting. And he ended up being in 2 scenes in it because
Mm.
and because I had him coming out of the dark into the light and back again, inspired by Apocalypse Now and
Yeah.
Marlon Brando's. I thought, well, I can do it that way because then I can extend his role early and later with a double and have him holding walkie-talkie and then just have extra lines which get somebody else to talk. Oh, the walkie-talkie like this, so you can't. It's not him. So his role is like 3 times longer
Yeah.
in the actual movie than it took to film
Oh,
it.
it's just an amazing story, and the film is one of my all-time favorites. So thank you for sharing that. And finally, I mean, I'll finish on the Piper. I do want to ask you one last question on the Piper, but why did you take American Werewolf in Paris? I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I never liked it when it was released, and I revisited it recently, and it doesn't hold up. I mean, I don't know what happened. Did these studios screw it up, like, or was it just not? Did it not work out how you wanted it, or have we
There was
all?
a bit of a conflict because it was clear it was going to be a comedy horror because it's tongue in cheek
Yeah.
and not taken seriously. And then the studio said, we've got to make, no, we want to make it a horror. And but I was planning on making it PG-13.
Okay.
They wanted to make it a R because, oh, we get the kids coming in anyway, because if it's an R, then they'll find their way to get to watch it and there'll be
Yeah.
more buzz about it. So, but that's defeating the point. And there was a lot more actually more humor in the movie as a comedy horror,
Mm.
and but it was trying to be. I was already making it as a square peg, and they were trying to put in a square hole. They were trying to put it in a round
Yeah.
hole, and
Okay.
they were trying to market it as a horror, and it was never shot as a horror. Yeah,
Mm.
so it was a bit
Well, I did like the two Julies. I thought they saved it almost. But sorry, I'm being friendly, of course,
yeah.
just honest. So, in your words, why should people watch The Piper? I like asking this question to sort of wrap it up.
Yeah,
There's so much to choose from. People
this
are
is a
looking at thumbnails on streaming services. You got to grab the attention. Besides people like my age who know Elizabeth Hurley from all her years of acting and other stuff that she's done, any any sort of tips why people should watch your movie, The Piper? Besides, it's actually a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed it.
yeah,
So,
not only just to watch it, but also be aware it has got more levels. There are more deeper
mm,
levels to think about or dimensions, and it's multiple. There's something for everybody in there, so you've got the adventure, the action, the horror, the
yeah.
romance, the supernatural, the ghost story. So it's a rich tapestry, and so it won't be as predictable. It will be predictable if you think it has no other level and just sort of let it wash over. There
Mm.
is uh, food for thought and things to work out, because at the end it's not actually all what it seems.
Was the CGI easier to work with, like say compared to American Werewolf in Paris, to what it was in this movie? I know they're different levels, but do you
Oh,
find that CGI is easier? and you're happier with it now than maybe
I
back then?
wasn't happy with their visual effects supervisor, so I was very heavily involved with the effects on that, and we had to redo so many shots,
Right.
so many times to get it right. And you know, um, I did the visual effects editing as well, and I had to um, imitate or some of the shots and give them um, visual storyboards. No, I want this, and they were getting the perspectives wrong, the speed of falling wrong,
Right.
um, and I had to almost demonstrate it in a rough form first for them to copy. So it was a long period and tedious, and that was why the post production took so long, because
Yeah.
the effects would have let the whole thing down had the rats not come out looking good.
Well, it's worked out well. I think the final product's really good. What's next? What's on the agenda? Any exclusives, or can you tell me what you're working on next, maybe?
Yeah, I'm working on quite a wide variety of things about a project which is based on cutting edge health and future longevity and cryonics, and there's also a script about tarantulas in hybrid tarantulas, and it's a horror movie, but
Arachnophobia.
not exactly, because there's more to the spiders, and their venom, they're crossbred, and each venom has a different way. So it's about a cabal and manipulation of people. And then there's a project set in Ohio, which is a psychological thriller,
Yeah.
which is also in the writing stage. And then there's a World War II movie based on a true story where
Okay.
I'm negotiating, co-writing a script to then direct, which is based on the raid on Saint Nazaire in the Second World War, true events. So again, it's a wide, it's a wide
True.
choice. It's not all the same kind of
Sure.
genre.
Ever thought of
It's like fishing. You put fishing rods out there, and you work on each. And
yeah,
if
but
where
it's
one nibbles first, and you see, oh, we're going to get finance for that, then you prioritize that and you reel that fish in. So which rod is going to start jerking first? I don't know.
so that's it. You got to throw the burley out to
Yeah.
get the grabbers. I mean, what about Billy returning? I mean, things have changed since 1995 and technology, but you could still twist it to be a similar style of mute witness, right?
Yeah. Uh,
That's something
so
I'd like to see.
yes, Spyglass Entertainment, 5 years in a row had taken an option for a remake, and then let that expire, and then um, I've and and the option is coming up for renewal for a sixth time with a different company.
Yep.
I think November those rights will be free again, and then the question is whether I do it myself and set it in South America, because there have been proposals to do that, to remake it, or um, if I start,
Or a direct sequel 30 years
or a
later.
sequel. Well, yeah, a sequel's a little bit different, because the the gag of the movie is, the deception of what's real or not, and
Okay.
with the um I mean, how do you sequel without telling the same